Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. I am driving back from my parents' house in Springfield towards back to home in Athens, and nice rainstorm, gigantic traffic jam, because why not? That's what travel's like. I'm around Charlotte right now, so you know the way it goes. Anyway, I wanted to talk today, number one, about how awesome full self-driving is, but number two, I wanted to actually think out loud a little bit about whether or not to trade in this very vehicle for a new Model Y long range and trade the full self-driving. Whether in other words, to take the deal that Tesla is giving us till the end of September. So first of all, number one, I got 3 hours of sleep the night before last. I got 5 hours of sleep last night. I've gotten night after night after night, super stressful, haven't gotten much sleep. This car has been clutch, both driving there when I was completely emotionally wrecked and driving back. Tesla's full self-driving team it's just miraculous. I mean, it's amazing. So I'm obviously driving in a very slow condition right now, but it'll do 70 plus miles an hour when the speed limit is there and when the traffic isn't so bad that I can actually drive on it. So it's amazing. Kudos to the team. It's just incredible what these folks have done, and I'm so appreciative. I really am. And I think a lot of people are just caught up in this idea that it's got to be perfect yesterday, and why else is it worth anything? I will tell you, it is worth a lot right now. The safety aspect, I've been zoned out here and there driving. It's been several, I guess about maybe seven and a half hours since I started. And so, I kind of zone out after a while, and I'm like, oh gosh, and the good thing the car's driving because it's paying attention. So, there's only so much a human can do, and I'm in not the best condition in the world. So the safety is fantastic. So I feel like I'm getting my money's worth out of this right now for these long road trips in particular. Anyway, that said, we're going to put that into the bin here. The question is, do I want to take advantage of, or is it an advantage to go with the new car, trade in the car, trade in my FSD for the new car, get FSD automatically transferred at no money? It's a $15,000 option right now, of course. I paid $10,000 on this car, so it was a period of time earlier, and I didn't pay as much, obviously. So it's a big deal to get a new car. Like if I waited until October and then decided I wanted to get a new Model Y, the difference to me would be $15,000 more or less. I could probably get some value out of full self-driving on this car, but not that much. So anyway, it would be a lot of money that I would be losing out on this deal. Now, the number one thing is, of course, that to purchase a car now, you're getting the current version of the Model 3 or Model Y. It appears, if I can trust the Electric Viking, I was watching his videos today, and he said that Europe already has backed up their Model 3 in particular to October to January. I have not checked this to be sure it's true, but he's generally spot on. And what that would mean is that Project Highland in Shanghai, at least, is active, and so that means that the Model 3 coming out of Shanghai and that is going to be delivered into Europe will be the refreshed version, which is why there's suddenly a big gap in time. And that's, I assume, what all the retooling in all the factories is. They said that in their quarterly report, that they would have a bunch of shutdowns in Q3, and clearly that's pretty obvious that that's retooling for the Project Highland Model 3. So that means that that's coming soon. The Model Y, the Project Juniper, I think that's the code name for it. That one is likely to be maybe March through July of next year. So we're looking at a much longer term in order to get that refreshed model. So the one thing, I don't really care particularly about the styling and stuff, but it sounds like the range is going to be significantly better, and there's a possibility that they might have ventilated cooled seats. That would be the one thing that would be a big bummer, because I'm just kind of a sweaty sort of person, and living in the South, I just feel like I'm always sweating. I would much rather have cooled seats than heated seats. How about that? I rarely use heated seats. I would use cooled seats all the time, and it wasn't until I sat in the Model S that I was like, oh wow, that's the thing. So anyway, so there is the negative of not getting the new hotness with the car, but if we're talking about potentially 6 plus 8 plus months to get the new vehicle, the biggest thing for me is hardware 4, and of course the new chip. I think it's AMD Ryzen that's in the new displays, but hardware 4 is the really big deal to me, and that would be that already is in the Model Ys. In fact, I talked to a person. I've had a lot of downtime just sitting with my mom, so I called up the person at the Tesla showroom in Atlanta and I asked him about the situation with Hardware 4 and whether it was a done deal for Hardware 4, and he was like, I can't absolutely guarantee it, but you can look at the VIN, and everything that we have in our lot right now is something that's been manufactured in the past like 3 or 4 weeks. And so I think somewhere in early to mid-June is when the switchover happened. So it sounds like it's, and I can of course check on that with the VIN to make sure that that's correct before I purchase it. But anyway, it sounds like it's a pretty done deal that I would get Hardware 4. So that's a good thing, and I'm going to put an asterisk by that too. So that would be a very positive aspect. Negative aspect is the 6.09% interest rate. Currently, we are paying about 2.5% interest on this car, which seems like a unicorn nowadays. After, it's like, oh wow, I wish I could get that kind of rate back again. But anyway, so the interest rate is a little more than double for that vehicle at a guess. I haven't actually, gone ahead and applied and all of that sort of stuff, but it looks like that would be the sort of ballpark for interest. So, and then this car, if I do Kelley Blue Book for trade-in, this car is about $34,500 for trade-in, about $38,000 to sell direct to another person. I always sell direct to other people, but this car is worth so much money that it might be just worth it to trade it in to Tesla. I know that's giving up like $4,000-ish. So I don't know. I'm always like, man, I can sell it myself, but when you're talking about that much money, it just becomes a really big issue to be able to sell a car private party. But maybe that's stupid of me, and maybe I should just go ahead and do it and get some more money, because the next factor is, so anyway, we owe about $24,000 on the car right now still, which means that I could trade it in, get a net somewhere around $10,000 from the car if I just trade it in, and of course that would move up to $13,000 or $14,000 if I did it private party. And I'm sort of of the opinion that I don't want my monthly car payments to go up. So what I would need to do is I would need to throw in another $5,000, which is where that trade-in private party selling thing would come in. But another $4,000 to $5,000 ish would knock the payment down to about $615, $620 a month, which is what we're paying right now. And as far as I'm concerned, I agree with Elon Musk. The sticker price of the car really isn't that important, because it's what it costs me per month, because for the foreseeable future, it's either going to be 3.5 more years or 6 years paying that amount of money, unless I strike it rich and and can pay it all off at once, which would be great. But unless that happens, it's going to just be a long-term sort of thing. It's like a mortgage on a house. It's just a monthly payment that you pay. So yeah. So I think as long as it was kind of an even transfer where it felt like it was the same monthly payment and there wasn't that much difference, it wouldn't feel that bad. And then you get the new car. I get the gray, because gray is now the base color, and I really like the gray color, so I think that's awesome. And of course we have the black Model 3, which we got, which is very, very sweet looking too, and I think the gray and the black would look really nice together. So anyway, I think that is a pretty reasonable thing. And then one other factor, of course, is the $7,500 in the United States. We would be eligible for another $7,500 because we purchased the Model 3 this year also, so we're eligible for $7,500 from the Model 3. We could also get $7,500 from this, and instead of owing the U.S. government $3,000 or $4,000, which is what we always seem to owe them, we would actually get money back from them, a lot of money back, which would basically pay the first year. That's kind of the calculation I made with the other car, is that like, wait, this pays for like the first year of our car payments, and that would do the same for this car as well, the trade-in and everything. So that's a big plus, and I'm very much leaning towards, I'm like, yeah, this all makes really good sense to do the trade-in. I know that there's a loss in value, and it makes more sense to just go ahead and pay off the car in a sense, but this is a depreciating asset. I've got 53,562 miles on it right now. So it's a lot of miles. So it's trading it in, get a newer car, newer build, the front casting, the rear casting is on this one already, but so you get a newer build, you get Hardware 4, you get all of this stuff, and you take 54,000 miles approximately off the vehicle. That's a pretty big, that's not a negative on that book at all. And of course you get Hardware 4, which is a huge deal. Negatives are that, and of course the $7,500. Negatives are you don't get the new Project Juniper Model Y, but I'm going to take a guess that we're looking at a little bit further down the road in order to get that. So I don't know if it's worth waiting for that, because honestly, Hardware 4 was the biggest thing that made me go like, oh man, I wish I could trade up, and so that's a big deal. It's really nice to get essentially a $15,000 bonus by not having to do that. Oh, the traffic is breaking up. Sorry about the increased noise right now, but I'm glad to be out of that traffic jam. Anyway, so you know, the $7,500 is great. That's a fantastic thing as well. That's just like Uncle Sam just giving me some money. The really, really big negative about this, and that's why I started with the full self-driving, is that the hardware for vehicles at this point do not have full self-driving available on them, and it is unknown how long it's going to be before we can get full self-driving. Now, I think a lot of people are like, why doesn't it just have full self-driving? It should have full self-driving. What's the deal? The deal is that the hardware for different cameras, different processor, all of that kind of stuff, different inputs, it has to be entirely retrained. They probably need a lot of fleet data to do the retraining to help it understand the world and to get up to the spec of hardware 3. And there was an initial thought people had that hardware 4 might run hardware 3 software in emulation. I think given the fact that people are not able to access full self-driving beta in hardware 4 indicates to me that we're talking about a situation where the vehicle, they're retraining this thing from scratch. So it's going to be behind the hardware 3 version of full self-driving beta for a period of time until they can take advantage of the larger fleet, they can get the data, they can train it up to the level it needs to be trained at, and it can take advantage of the better cameras and the faster processing and everything. So there's going to be a period of time, it could be 1 month, it could be 6 months plus, where you won't even be able to get full self-driving beta. And the interesting aspect about that is that full self-driving beta, when you go on the configurator now, and I went because I was looking at it and playing around, when you do it, it says you can pay the $15,000, but it says sort of like reserve your spot. It doesn't say, hey, here's full self-driving beta. It's like future access to full self-driving beta, which is really interesting that that's all that there is right now. You don't have access to that, and it used to be that it was available. So clearly they've moved on to hardware 4 now, and they're also not lying on the page saying you have access to this on day 1. They're saying that you have to submit it, or you just have to wait. So you're paying the money up front to wait. So one of the things you could think about is that Tesla, in addition to clearing inventory for their new models coming up, they may have wanted to do this full self-driving trade because they know they've got a backlog of people who've purchased full self-driving for less than the $15,000 who are not trading up because they don't want to pay the additional $15,000. But also they're not trading up because they don't want to get hardware for and not have full self-driving beta. But by doing this for free, they're essentially giving people an incentive. Like me, I wouldn't have thought of this otherwise. They're giving us an incentive to get the new car with hardware 4, clear out their current inventory, especially I'm sure with the Model 3, but also with the Model Y as well, and get that all figured out. And so basically they're clearing the inventory, but they're also getting people to upgrade to this hardware 4 without being frustrated about it. If I paid $15,000 on top of that and it didn't work, I'd be like, hey man, what the hell? But at this point I'm like, oh man, they're giving me like a freebie. And so we could take a guess that Tesla might be guesstimating that they will be able to release the full self-driving beta for hardware 4 around the end of this quarter, end of September into October. Now that could be optimistic, right? It could be November, December, into next year even. But that is a big deal for me because obviously this kind of driving that I'm doing is it's a lot. It's very taxing, and I really appreciate having full self-driving. So that's the number one issue that I'm having, and so I would actually appreciate some help from all of you. What do you think? I asked in on X, I was going to say on Twitter, but on X, and there was a huge bifurcated response. There's people who are like, already done it, can't wait, to I hate Elon Musk, never going to do it, he's taking advantage of us and all of this kind of stuff. Just a gigantic difference between people's opinions about this. Sorry about the rain, it's very loud. I'll stop in just a minute here. But anyway, I would be really interested to know what you all think, especially if you have full self-driving beta now, whether you're going to take advantage of this or not, or whether you consider it advantage, or whether you feel like you're being taken advantage of. So anyway, it would be very interesting to find out. I would love to know about that. I'm going to, the car's driving, which is great, but I'm going to focus on the road even more than I am right now. And I hope everybody has a lovely day. Thank you all so much for supporting the channel in any way you can, and all of the love and everything from for my mom and her health situation. It's wonderful to be on the way back home again and to have her healthy enough that I felt like I could leave her, even though it was very emotional to do that. So I appreciate that. Everybody do the whole like and subscribe thing. Check out the merch store. Check out me on X, my friends, whatever. All of that good stuff. And I will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.